Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and once again I'm joined by Colin Watt, and we are joined today by special guest David Simmons from the Salt and Sauce Show, and also James McDonough, who is joining us from Edinburgh City, and it's a great privilege to have someone with that insight into the management of a professional football club. So let me hear your thoughts about that second half.
Well, it's a big 3 points, I think. First and foremost, I think that's the biggest thing they'll take for the game. Still the same 3 points if you were to win 5-0.
Yeah,
I thought it was a really difficult game. I think St Mirren probably come out of it with more of the plaudits than Celtic, but I think it was a great reaction to conceding early, controlled the whole of the first half, went into half-time obviously in front, and I think at that point they would be happy, but maybe not so happy about the second half. I think they didn't create enough and found it really difficult, but it was down to St Mirren playing really deep, and that's... You've got to maybe find a way. I think they scored with 2 crosses, obviously, and maybe never put enough crosses in the second half.
Oh, I think if we speak about the crosses, we have to talk about a game of 2 halves for Ryan Christie. We're praising him at half time, giving him all the praise for the 2 balls in for the goals, but in the second half, I don't even think he hit a Celtic player with any of the crosses he put in the second half, Sammy.
That's it. I mean, one comes to mind where I think it was a free kick just on the edge of the 18, and it's not even bounced in the park, it's just went right out, and it's poor for a player of Christie's level, especially to say a game of 2 halves when the first half he set up 2 goals.
I know, and I was very critical of him. I then admitted that he was excellent in the first half, and then he went and done that. Exactly. But I think the point that you made during the game as well, in relation to being a striker for Celtic during that second half, that's a nightmare to play in a game like that, isn't it?
I think so, because St Mirren were so deep, so that you've not got any space to run in behind, so you're kind of relying on we slipped in the side of the centre half, but they were limited to very few chances. I think there was a couple that maybe they could have been a wee bit more clinical with, and even Yeti, when he came on, Forrest banged one into him. His first touch was a wee bit loose, but saying that, they miss a penalty kick, could have been Christie's 3rd assist of the game, if you like, as well. So, I mean, I think they just take the points and get up the road.
Oh, without a doubt. You mentioned the missed penalty. Eduard, the commentator, was talking about that was the story of his night, or that sums up his night. I felt Eduard was struggling because of the game that St Mirren were playing, but you seen him coming deeper. At one point, he's at the left kind of back area of the pitch just to try and get involved. Eduard, I felt, had a tough night. He did okay, but it was a poor penalty. You knew where it was going.
I said that, I called it. I said it's going into Bobby's bottom right. You could see the way Bobby's my first name term. You could see the way he was lining up, because that's personally me. If I was in goals, that's where I would be going. But it is a poor penalty. It's a good height for a keeper. It needs to be in the corner, and like I said to you off air, if you lift that ball up in the air, keepers never dive up the way.
He's went the same way as where he's went at the weekend.
Exactly. So any goalkeeper that's done his research and looked at that, you're going to have a slight inkling as to what side he's already going to go to.
And the thing is, at the weekend, the ball was in the corner. This was barely to Zlamal's right. So it was a really poor penalty.
At that time of the game as well, you score that, you go and you get a 4th. I mean, they're just going to kick on for that. That gives a little bit of ammunition in the belly of the St Mirren players to come back into the game. You talked about obviously how hard it was for the Celtic players to break them down defensively, but that's credit to obviously St Mirren, and that's how they've been told to line up against teams like Celtic and try and catch them on the break. So credit to St Mirren the way that they've lined up. Like you say, Celtic get 3 points up the road. It doesn't matter if it's 5-0 or if it's 2-1.
Definitely, and I think something that just what you mentioned there, when Celtic did miss that penalty, it did kick St Mirren into action, and we've seen it towards the dying embers of the game. They were coming more and more into it. Someone that was picked up in commentary, Kyle McCausland, was kind of causing Celtic back problems. When the substitution came on and Abika came on, and you've got a great start, a great bit of info for the listeners in a minute on Abika, but he did cause problems. The reason I'm going to ask this is probably because we would have thought Abika would have started. Is that the reason maybe why Julian didn't get a game? Are we expecting St Mirren to have that big forward up front that Julian has traditionally struggled against? I don't think we really missed him today, but is that maybe the reason he was rested?
Nah, like what Paul said, I think that's a great point. That could well be that one of the reasons as to why he never started. I think you could be onto some of that, but going back to the fact.
Yeah, let's hear this fact
to hear it, because I mentioned this off air. It's something that I don't even know how I come across it, but Obika, who come on there for St Mirren, is first cousins with Lamar, who won Fame Academy all those years ago in the 90s, and that's
for anyone that doesn't know any Lamar songs, could you give us a wee rendition?
Not a rendition, but I believe it was Dance With Me was his number 1 hit.
That's right, I do remember
him.
Is
that not Dizzy Rascal?
I do remember him.
Dizzy Rascal, Calvin Harris.
Oh, dance with me. Google it, Paul.
There we goes.
Someone else
Listeners will let us know.
Someone
anyway.
else give us a shout. What was the hit? He definitely had at least one hit.
I'm sure it was dance. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Who was
please.
the Scottish guy that won that?
David Snedden.
Aye.
David Snedden. He won a talent competition at my local minors club in Lonehead the year before. He went on One Fame Academy.
From Paisley, wasn't he?
For Paisley, aye.
Is he?
Yep.
Right.
He's still a songwriter to this day. Writes songs. He makes an absolute mint of it, apparently.
Oh, aye.
Correct me again if I'm wrong.
No.
But I think he's made a career more out of songwriting than
Good on him.
Just been told here, Lamar didn't win Fame Academy and it was in the early 2000s.
Oh, well, I do apologise. But hopefully somebody can clarify that his single was dance. I'm hoping that's...
Let's bring that up. I'm going to have to ask Steve Eddie how he knows that, because I know for a fact he's not googled that. He just knew that.
Right.
Right?
That
Did you
was
buy?
fact
Did you
quick
buy
to
the
go.
I'm going
single?
to say that a girl, Alex, won Fame
Alex
Academy that
Turner.
year.
That's right.
Alex, short hair.
Yep.
Yep, I'm going to say she won it that year.
This shows how bad that second half was, that we're now talking about the history of Fame Academy. But when you mentioned that, before I get back to a couple of the points that we've not covered yet, before we go back to that, you are looking for a bit of talent yourself because you are presenting a show for A State of Mind. Tell our listeners what the show is, what the premise is, and who we can look forward to seeing in the coming weeks.
Yeah, so my show is called The Salt and Sauce Show. It's an East Coast based online show. You can get us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, all the good social media outlets. James was our guest on tonight's show from Edinburgh City. So that'll be going out next Friday. We have got this Friday Tony Brown, who was a columnist for the Edinburgh Evening News. He was a football sports writer. And he's wrote a book about Heart of Midlothian's famous cup win in 1998. So he's on the show this week. It's called The Salt and Sauce Show because I don't know if a lot of people watching this will know the connection. Paul didn't. So in Edinburgh, what do you have in your fish and chips, James?
Brown sauce.
Salt and sauce.
Salt and vinegar.
No salt and vinegar.
See, we need
East
to
Coast
find,
is salt and sauce.
we need to find out from the listeners where that divide comes in, because I've noticed this as well. When you get towards the East Coast, I've been at Easter Road and it's salt and sauce and you ask for vinegar and they look at you strange.
Yep.
So we need to know where the line is, and that will officially divide Scotland. That will be determined between the East Coast and the West Coast.
So what? Right, here you go then. You go into a chippy and you want salt and vinegar and sauce. What do you ask for then?
Salt and sauce for me.
Salt and sauce, but a wee splash of vinegar.
Really?
You tend to find in the salt and vinegar chip shops, maybe more through the West, you'll get a sachet sauce if you ask for sauce.
It's brown
Rather-
sauce, HP sauce.
Aye, rather than straight from the bottle.
Whereas chippy sauce
That's
in
chippy sauce.
Edinburgh is like a kind of vinegary brown sauce, from what I know.
Watery.
Aye, yep.
So I'm looking forward to some of these, and obviously we're totally privileged that you're in tonight, and it's great to get your expertise on the game as it happened. I've got to say, I've been pretty impressed with tonight's coverage on St Mirren TV with our two former guests, Danny Lennon and Frank McAvenny. Obviously taking a step back a wee bit from a Celtic State of Mind to appear on St Mirren
That's a head of
television.
hair, isn't it? That
It's
is
a step
that is
down,
a head
that,
of
I
hair that he's got going on there.
Who, Danny?
Aye.
He did say a couple of things on our broadcast in relation to bringing back national service and the belt at the school, which went down like a lead balloon. Other than that, I thought that he had some excellent suggestions about Scottish football. So let's pick your brain for a wee minute. Obviously, where you are just now, it's tough. It's tough at this level, obviously, with regards to not being able to play games. So let's look ahead to the new season. What do you have in store for Edinburgh City this season?
Well, we'll try and push for the title as best we can. I think we're faced with Queen's Park, who went full time and being well backed, so that'll be a challenge. But we want to be up there. The last couple of years we've been third and second and just missed out, obviously, with the playoffs not happening end of last season. So just push as much as we can. Maybe cause a wee upset somewhere along the line in the Betfred, not to get through it. But last year we beat Dunfermline, which was a good scalp for us. In the last couple of years we've beat Dunfermline, we beat Alloa on penalties, we beat Arbroath live on TV 4-1. So we've done well against teams above us, but obviously it's a tight one automatic promotion and the playoffs. So we'll just try and push as much as we can.
And we mentioned earlier that, you know, with regards to loan players, getting some youth players from the likes of Celtic would assist a team like Edinburgh City, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. But, I mean, we mentioned Savoury earlier on. Grant came in, made a good impact, and he's maybe going to get a move to a championship team maybe because of that. And, you know, I've seen Celtic youths over the years, have been a lot of good players.
Yeah.
I mean, I take it back to when I was at Hibs, taking youth team, Callum McGregor, I think that year got my vote as player of the year. The two teams then were, a lot of players went on to play at a good level. Fraser played and Tony Watt all at that time. And I think the Twardzic's played in at about that time as well. So there's a lot of good players that went on to that level, and it's absolutely. If there's any players, Celtic young players want to come to us, we'll open the doors.
Brilliant. I mean, we'll be in discussions with members of your board in relation to doing a regular podcast, so hopefully we'll see you back in the studio at some point during the season as well. There's an interesting point here from Kenny Wilson, big Celtic fan from my area, so he asked for salt and vinegar. Need more dynamic play from the midfield, both centrally and in wide areas. Now, this ties into one of the points you made during the first half, and during the second half, Colin, in relation to Scott Brown. What do we do with Brown over the next couple of games? Do we bring in Turnbull to give us that dynamic play that Kenny's asking for?
So this is the worrying part for me, and we sat and we looked at the schedule going forward for Celtic. Celtic play Livingston on Saturday, and by the looks of things, if I'm wrong, then someone will correct me on the comments, but Scott Brown's now one booking away from a suspension. So we have 3 games in between the next 13 days, not 14 days. And once you pick up that next yellow card, you are suspended from the 14th day. So the 14th day and the first game after that will be Rangers. So Scott Brown's got to get through the next 3 games without a booking to avoid missing the Rangers game. And for me, when you've got to go to the likes of Easter Road to play Hibs, Livingston at home shouldn't be that much of a... I say that now, I probably jinxed this. It shouldn't be that much of a hassle for Brown not to get booked. I'll say it that way. Easter Road's a different kettle of fish. They've had a really good start to the season of Hibs, and it'll be a really tough game going through there. St Johnstone at home as well. You're thinking a home game, you really shouldn't get into any unnecessary battles. But you're really risking the fact that he's had that many yellow cards so far this season that we can't afford him to have one more before the kind of the Rangers game. And what do you do? Do you do the old Jose Mourinho or telling him to get sent off so that he doesn't miss the next game? And that backfired for him. So it's a catch-22 situation. Brown's mature enough and he's old enough not to get himself in that situation. But as you as a manager, James, if you had a player that was in that scenario and you're going up to a first versus second match coming up, and you know you've potentially got a player who's pivotal for your side, who's on that suspension tightrope, what do you do as a manager?
I think if it was maybe just one game, you would rest them, but it's 3 games. So, they're big games. They have to go into that Rangers game with maximum points. It's the old cliche, it's the same 3 points this week as it is next week, but the Rangers game could be a 6-pointer. But the danger is you leave Brown out. He's such a influential leader. You've seen that over the years. He's top player, top leader, brings so much out. I would have to play him, I think. And you're kind of playing him with your fingers crossed, sitting in that dugout, hoping that he doesn't do anything rash. And if he gets booked in the next game, they've got a couple of games to try, maybe McGregor and Cham together in the middle or something like that. Celtic have got a good squad of players. They should beat on, no getting on there. Maybe he would come in and sit in front of the back 3 or 4. But the worry is as well, Rangers midfield have been very good. They've controlled all their games. They talk about them not conceding any goals, but it's because their midfield have had such control of all their games.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think if you leave them out for one game, you'd have to leave them out for 3. It might be that you play him through the next 2, and then if it's the St Johnstone game, then he's just missing 1 game. You don't want him going into an Old Firm game having not played for 4 weeks.
You've got that scenario as well that the Old Firm, the Glasgow Derby, we don't like to call it the Old Firm. We get a lot of comments telling us otherwise. That's you. That's your card mark.
It's a black mark against your name, boy.
Used to be the Old Firm.
But no, we do go into that game on the back of the international break, so there is going to be that sort of 2-week period where Brown's not going to be kicking a ball, whereas a lot of these players are going to be travelling all around the globe to compete for their country. We noticed on Saturday that it didn't seem to affect him. He had a really good game up at Ross County. Tonight was maybe just too many games in a short period of time for him. He managed to get that half an hour break on Saturday because Celtic were doing so well. He had to play the full 90 tonight to kind of see us through. But even his booking was just a bit daft in my opinion. He doesn't need to do that, and if you keep picking up these daft bookings, eventually you might miss a big game like the Rangers game.
Now, thanks for correcting yourself about the Old Firm, Colin, because everybody knows there's no such thing.
Yep.
That is a relic. Now, with regards to the man of the match, I'm looking at Duffy. I think he was just composed. He just calms things down. he's going to be a goal threat all season. But I love the fact that he gets the ball. He's got so much time on the ball. There was a moment we looked at that. There was no way anyone was going to come near him. He just calms everything down. And although I like Julian and Ayer as a partnership, I just think he brings this kind of solid presence to the Celtic defence. Would you go with that? Was he your man of the match?
No, I agree. I think he looks very composed, very calming, but he doesn't slow the tempo down of the game. He keeps the tempo going, and he looks like a leader, if you ask me. If Scott Brown's not wearing that captain's armband, if he gets rested, that's who I think should be your captain.
He's definitely.
I know he's only just new to the squad, etc., but he's a big guy. He looks like a leader. He's, like I say, he's very composed, and he does a lot of things right.
That's a fantastic point you make as well. This is his second game.
Yep.
And we've made 4 changes tonight. So he's playing with a different back 3 again, or back 4, whatever way we looked at it. He's playing with different players in front of him. He's still getting used to the way Celtic play. It's his second game since Brighton's season finished, really, if you discount the Republic of Ireland games. So he is still getting back that match fitness. And I think he's only going to get better for Celtic. And you can see those leadership qualities from when he scored tonight. He didn't really celebrate, because he knew it was only one each. He was so determined to get the ball back to halfway line. Let's get going, because it's unacceptable for Celtic to have dropped any points tonight. So he knew the importance of what the 3 points meant, and he drove the team forward. Something that James, you picked up on was when he has the ball, he's in the opposition half, and he doesn't look under threat at all. He always looks so calm and composed. Can you imagine having a centre half like Duffy at Edinburgh City and what it would do for your team?
No, I'm sure he would put us in contention right at the top. But you're right. I think he said all the right things as well since he signed for the Celtic supporters. He was speaking about his dream just to play, you know, and people always talk about the Magic 10 and all that sort of stuff. But he was fulfilling a dream just to play for the club. So he's played, he's scored again. And you can see why he's here. He's got a focus. He's got a determination about him, as you mentioned about the equaliser. He's here. He looks like he's on a mission to me. He looks like he's here for one reason only, to pick up medals. And he wants as many as he can. You can just tell the way he's playing.
He's such a threat as well, isn't he? In both boxes. Both boxes. He defends so well, but he would slide tackle his granny to score a goal for Celtic. That's the way he looks like it, and he nearly took out Julian. Maybe that's why Julian never played. Maybe he's still recovering from that goal at the weekend.
Possibly. I've got one final point to make, but before I do that, Red Scotland has just got a wee message for you, Simi. Sauce and vinegar are entirely different condiments. People may like one, but not the other. It's a fair point.
But you can still like the Salt and Sauce Show on a State of Mind YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Friday night at 6. Now, James, while we're on the show, I'd love to ask you about Greg Taylor. He's been getting a bit of stick from some quarters of the Celtic support, and I think looking at his performance, he does a lot of things right. And one of the points that was made last week was he has come from a defensive team, and he's been playing in a defensive team for a number of years. He's come into a Celtic side. He spends half his time up the top end of the pitch. From a manager's perspective, would you be pretty happy with his performance tonight?
I thought he was okay. I thought he could maybe have put a few more crosses in the box when he was getting into wide areas. Duffy played a couple of passes to him that were overhit as well, but he's got big shoes to fill. Like, you know, Kieran Tierney obviously maybe split the Celtic supporters as well, how he left and all that sort of stuff, but he was outstanding, and you see him there. It's a big ask of him. When they lose the ball, he's got to get back into that 4, and he's got to have the energy to get forward. But it's maybe one that some people say he's had enough time, but it's a completely different role. He's played probably the majority of that game in the final third of the pitch.
Yeah.
So if he's doing that, what are you expecting him to do? Put crosses in the box, maybe wee 1-2s, give and goes. You've seen Christie, the position that he was in to win the penalty kick. That's the type of position that you'd expect Taylor to get into, to go and deliver the ball in the box. And it'd be interesting to see some stats to see how many crosses he actually put in.
Yeah.
And it was that type of game when the opposition are that tight and compact. As you mentioned, Duffy picking up the ball beyond the centre circle.
Yeah.
The whole St Mirren team crammed. It's about getting the ball wide because it's hard to play through. So I would have liked to maybe seen him maybe put a few more crosses in and see if they could get some goals for it.
And Paul, it's something we spoke about on the bulletin earlier on that we got back to. He was the only option at left back tonight, unless you played someone out of position like Forrest on the left hand side. Does it maybe suggest that Lennon that now needs to make it a priority to go out and get a left-sided player? Because if Taylor was to continue tonight and we were struggling and we needed a goal, he wasn't, as you were saying, James, he didn't really create a lot down the left-hand side. So if you're looking for someone to come on and change it, there wasn't that option on the bench, and that's what you're really looking for, is someone that can come on and do something a bit different. I don't know, we spoke about guys like Barry Douglas, Aaron Hickey, guys like that, but we're now coming towards the sort of the nitty-gritty of the transfer window. We should be really looking at making that a priority, and hopefully maybe by the Livingston game we might see someone else come in.
Well, let's hope so, because we need cover. But as you were saying there, James, I do think that with regards to Taylor, I do feel that he is finding himself in areas of the pitch that he needs to adapt his game. He's playing it for an attacking side, and hopefully, even if we do bring someone in, Colin, Taylor is still your first choice left back. Looking at some of the guys we've been linked with, so tonight for me, man of the match, Shane Duffy. We get the 3 points and we move on to our game against Livingston. And all that's left for me to say is to say thank you to David Simmons, and I look forward to your show on Friday night. Thank you to James McDonough, and I look forward to seeing how Edinburgh City do this season. Cheers. Hopefully we'll see you back, guys.
Yeah, great, thanks.
And thanks for everybody for listening to A Celtic State of Mind.